Leer. Wildside.
Welcome to Chip Leer's Wildside podcast. We are very fortunate today to have a guest on our show who, in the state of fishing, Minnesota, is one of the most recognizable fishing guides in our state. And of course, I'm talking about Dan Eigen, better known as Walleye Dan. Those of you that live and breathe fishing inside the state of Minnesota know exactly who this man is, because he's synonymous with the sport and one of the most visible fishing guides in our state. This past year, in 2019, he was diagnosed with a bone marrow cancer. It is quite the battle. It is the battle of his life. And we're going to talk about fishing, the fishing industry, and Dan Eigen, Walleye Dan, and how he is dealing with cancer. Let's sit back and listen to Dan Eigen. We're sitting in the middle of the state of Minnesota where there's 1.4 million plus anglers. Everybody in this state loves to chase walleye, but there's only one Walleye Dan, and he's with us here today, which is pretty darn cool. Dan Eigen, welcome to the Wildside podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have you here. You are one of, if not the most visible fishing guide in the state of Minnesota. You've earned an impeccable reputation over the years for being able to put people on fish, regardless of the time of year, winter, summer, winter. And you're running a whole host of guides through there now. I think there's a number of people that you're working with on this train, but you're living the dream, man.
Well, that's what a lot of people think. You're right. But as you know, other fishing guides would tell you, it's not always what it seems. But on the other hand, I don't know that I would trade it for anything else. You know, maybe DH for the Twins, you know, back in the day when I could, you know, actually swing a bat.
You're going to have some competition at that role right now. I'm just saying
They've made some recent
moves that, to get your position, and the Bomba squad might take a little effort.
Oh, for sure. But back in the day, I would have given a couple of them a run. But we'll go back to fishing.
You know what my first job was? Not to get.
I don't.
I'm here to talk about I was a vendor at the old Met Stadium in Bloomington, running up and down.
You kind of look like Wally the beer man.
Yeah, running up and down the staircase selling peanuts and popcorn. That was my first gig.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe that's where I recognize you from.
No, but
I spent some time there too.
Oh God, but I do love. We do love baseball. So, I want to back up here, and here you are, right? And you're very visible, and we're going to touch on a lot of these subjects right now. But you're on TV. You're very active on the internet and on social media. You run a fishing tournament that raises money for charity. You've done great things with your profile as an angler and in a state. And I'm not joking here. I mean, we got 1.4, 1.5 million anglers inside of our state of Minnesota. To achieve the notoriety that you have in one of the most active fishing states in all of North America is no small task. So how did we get here?
Well, that's really interesting that you put it that way, and I was just thinking about that, and yeah, that is, without being arrogant, that is kind of impressive. We'll use that word.
I bring it up because I think there's a whole bunch of people that want to know, and there's a whole bunch of people that would love to live that life. I mean, I left Minneapolis to be a full-time fishing guide. I didn't care. I mean, I was just obsessed with, I'm going to figure out a way to fish for a living. And I want to know if your story is a lot like mine.
Well, and I did. I grew up in Eden Prairie, and we vacationed up in the Brainerd Lakes area and absolutely fell in love with walleye fishing, right? My dad was a fisherman, and just really was intrigued by that whole, structure and, the presentation and the speed and et cetera, mainly live bait fishing. But, and obviously, and, a lot of the people out there know that the Brainerd Lakes area is home to many, many good anglers. And, the Nisswa Guides League was the place, when I, came up here after high school. And you know what? They had a corner on the market. They were good, and the trips were coming, and they didn't have to do anything. And we started to promote a little bit, and all of a sudden we started making some waves, and one thing led to another, and and here we are. I know there's a lot in between, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, but so how did you start guiding? Because I know you did some other things before you guided.
Yeah, so I was working at the Quarterdeck, and
Which is a restaurant.
which is a resort restaurant
Yep.
on the west side of Gull Lake. And Mark Lee at the time, he was Mr. Gull Lake. He was a Nisswa guide, and big, tall, dark-haired guy, that talked kind of slow and was just a fishing machine. And he'd come into the docks, and I'd be weed whipping the hillside and kind of see his boat coming in. I'd shut the weed whacker off and walk down and see what was happening. How'd you do? And he'd always have 6 or 8 of them in the box, and I was always quizzing him how deep and where at, da 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 da. And I know better now not to ask those questions, right? Because I don't necessarily like those all the time. But he was always, well, Dan, maybe you're not fishing deep enough, something like that. And it's like, so yeah, that was it. And I'm like, you know what? Seeing these other guys out there making money fishing, and here I am, weed whipping. I'm like, I can do that. And so I made up a business card. It was Gull Lake Guide Service, and I was living right next door to the Quarterdeck. Didn't want to put those people's number on my business card. Didn't have a cell phone back then. So here I am with a business card with no phone number on it, right? How does that work?
Well, you can go get the mail every day.
So anyway, so it's just, bottom line is it just, little by little, I built it up, and yeah, there's just so much, and a turning point, we'll say, where I went from the Gull Lake Guide Service to Walleye Dan. I'll have to certainly give credit to a friend of mine, Jim Paff, who is, a really talented guy. He designed a logo for me that was, which is now the Walleye Dan logo.
He was also art director for a pretty sizable organization called In Fisherman.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Super talented guy, but I didn't know him, and I had rented a fish house out to some guys from all places, Alaska, right? And I remember right where it was, and they were like, "Do you know Jim Paff?" And I'm like, "Nope." And this was, who knows how many years ago, 15, 18 years ago. And they go, "Well, you should hook up with him. Super talented guy." And so I did. And yeah, Jim designed the logo and that whole branding thing, and really took off from there. And I heard it so many times, Chip, where it's like, yeah, that Walleye Dan, he's such a great marketer. And you know what? And that's great. But, being a fisherman and, having pride, right? And an ego, right? It's like, you know what? I'm a good fisherman too. I don't just know how to market, It was one of those things, I heard it all the time. Well, gosh, he's all over the place, marketing, But bottom line is you need both to, be successful in the business that we're in.
Well, it's a competitive industry, which people, I don't know if you've never guided, there's a lot of camaraderie amongst guides, but there's also a lot of competition amongst guides. I mean, I think they're not only for business, but for fish, right?
Absolutely. It's huge and getting stronger each season.
Well, and the anglers are getting smarter and stronger and better. The knowledge. I mean, I think when I think of old school guiding, it was really kind of a secret. There was more secrets than there are now. Let's put it that way. There was more secret lakes. There was more secret spots. I think it's hard to keep anything a secret anymore in the fishing world.
Oh my gosh!
Every cell phone's taking a picture and tagging where you're at. So that makes it a little bit more difficult as well. With that, but how do you go from where you are to suddenly, where do we go from you being a guide to suddenly we've got a host of guides?
Just business, multiplying, it's like you'd get a call and it's like, well, you know what, I'm booked. And then you just have to, look who's around. We had other guys, that would come, and ask, I'd like to do what you're doing. And, and they had to fit, right? It had to be a good fishing guide is able to do many things, right? You can't just fish. You got to be able to, either you're a good communicator and a good fisherman, you're a joke teller and a fisherman, you can't just be a fisherman because you're not going to make it. You need to be, like someone said the other day, you almost need to be bipolar, right? To be able to react to these different people. And, it's just one of those things where there are so many fishing guides, but you know what? I don't know quite how to word this, but there's only so many good ones. And I'm not telling you I'm a good one, but I'm just saying that it takes a lot to be able to, stand the test of time and do many, many trips. And it's an interesting profession. We'll put it that way.
So what makes a good fishing guide in your opinion?
I would say that, first off, you need to have that passion to be driven to catch fish, right? But you need to be able to take that and take it away from yourself and say, you know what, this is about you, Chip, or this is about you, Susie, or whoever, right? It's not about you anymore, right? Back in the day, I remember, if I caught one great, it adds to our catch. But it's these days, whether it's in the snow bear when I'm guiding on the ice or in the boat, I don't need to catch a fish, right? It's not my trip, it's their trip. They're here to learn, they're here to catch. It's for them. So you need to be able to turn that passion of yourself and push it over and make sure the trip is for them. Obviously knowledge of the lakes goes hand in hand with having that passion, but being able to communicate, you absolutely have to be able to, be well-versed, whether it's sports and, obviously a lot of fishermen are hunters and, but it's just, and maybe you got to be a good BSer too, because there's 4 hours, 8 hours, whatever it is, there's going to be plenty of time between, bites where you gotta just roll with it. And one thing I do want to say is I do really suck when the fish aren't biting. I'm not the joker. Bruce Mintz, one of our guides, is the joker, joke teller. But when the fish are biting, I'm great.
So a guide story I'm going to share with you real quick about the joke thing. When I first started guiding, I moved up to Lake of the Woods, and it's I don't know, this is my year 2 or 3 of guiding, and it's before the season started. So all the guides are up on the islands, and we're helping getting the resorts put together and ready to open for the season. And there's a young buck, the young friend of mine who's going to guide his first season. He's all jacked up because he's going to be living on Lake of the Woods and guiding every day. And all the guys are sitting around eating dinner or lunch or whatever. We're eating a meal. I don't remember what it was. Doesn't even matter. We're eating a dinner, and he's Mr. Inquisitive. So he's saying to everybody, so what do you do when the fish don't bite? What do you do when the fish don't bite? Right? And one of the guys goes, well, I tell jokes. Oh, good idea. So what jokes do you tell? So they tell jokes, and it all comes around, and everybody gets a laugh. Well, the season starts. Well, sure enough, he gets out there, and he's having a rough day. So he's into about his 3rd joke when the client goes, enough jokes, just fish.
Yeah, I'll bet there comes a time.
He came back to the dock, Says, I didn't know what to say the rest of the day.
That's awesome.
I love that story.
That is a good one. Yeah. Well, he knows 3 more than I do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
It is.
And because you're trying to entertain people, and then you're also still trying to stay loose and have fun while you turn it into a search. But that's really what fishing is. I mean,
Totally.
it's all. I mean, you're out there. If it was easy, right? If you knew they were going to bite at 9 o'clock on this lake on this weed line, it'd be a piece of cake. The problem is that everything changes, and there's a million variables, and you got to figure it out. So I mean, that's why they get in the boat and they hand you $100 and say, "Take me to a good spot first."
Correct. Yep. And a wise fisherman will take them to the best spot last. But yeah, that is so true. Yeah, it's definitely, like you say, millions of variables in that sport, and I guess what my mind is always going, right? I mean, you're in a conversation with somebody, but yet you got to be thinking of the next spot and what the next presentation might be, and right. So
I mean, have you had? Let's talk about clients for a second. Do we have any that we? Do we have any fun stories? Anything that you can think about that was maybe more interesting days than not?
Well, if I mention this and these people watch this podcast, then
we still won't know who they are.
Okay, well, they will know who they are.
But we won't know who they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this goes back probably, I don't know.
Did I tell you that this is new? And actually we have no viewers whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the 2 viewers right now,
Yeah.
hopefully, no, it's not that big of a deal. They'll be able to, it's the truth, right? So
Yeah.
I'm telling the truth.
Right.
I'm not lying. 15 years ago, I picked up at Madden's, and father and 2 sons, and oh my goodness, it was just mayhem, right? We were Lindy Reagan, and we were catching bass nonstop, right? It was just crazy. The boys were probably, maybe 8 and 5 or something like that. And it was like, oh, okay, I'm netting fish and taking weeds off and baiting hooks and da-da-da-da. And the kids were just wired. I mean, like so much that I was like, I don't know if I can handle 4 hours of this. And then I pulled off the spot a little bit, and the dad was like, okay, it's time for a break. And so he cracks out the snack bag, which had Hershey bars in it.
Perfect.
Not with almonds either, just straight up Hershey bars. And I'm like, oh, Lord, help me through this, because I know it's going to get even crazier, right? So I'm trying to decide whether I pull back onto that spot or go to another spot. And me having my mind is all over the place all the time too, right? It's a little spacey. And so I'm like, after snack time, I'm like, okay, we're out of here. I hit the throttle and snap. And I look back, and there was the bracket of my Minn Kota Vantage hanging on the transom, but no motor. Ripped it right off, 72 feet of water, Wilson Bay. And I'm like, oh boy. So, and then it was just like, ended up fishing some more, whatever. And then that night, it was 4th of July weekend. There was fireworks at Madden's. So my wife and kids and I went down to Madden's to watch fireworks and ran into this family, and they were like, oh my gosh, we had the time of our lives, and can we book for next year? And so I flat out told them a pretty good white lie, like, you know what, we're planning a vacation next year over the 4th, and I won't be around. And I said, but we have other guys that are just as capable as I am of putting you on fish. And, so they booked. And when it got down to it that next year, I was like, I can't do this to our other guides, right? So I did it. I did the trip. I just knew that I'd be mentally prepared for them. And you know what? Made it through that one. Made it through the next year. And the next year, and the next year, and the next year. Probably, I don't know how many years, probably 13 years I fished with them and watched the boys grow. But yeah, I was so close to just saying, can't do that. anymore. And I'm really thankful that I was able to, see them grow and mature and actually know what a bite was. And,
There's a face your fears lesson in that somewhere there.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's one that I always think of, and but yeah, there are so many, that so many customers, and the good ones, the good trips outweigh the bad ones, like 20-1, but there's certainly a fair share of interesting ones mixed in there.
So have you any celebrities that we can think of?
Yeah, I've fished with some celebrities, boy. Politicians, I guess I wouldn't call them celebrities, but
They would.
They would, yeah. Roscoe P. Coltrane. Remember Roscoe?
I know that name.
Coo, coo, coo. I love it. Dukes of Hazzard, Roscoe.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
Roscoe.
So I fished with Roscoe. Roscoe wanted to catch smallmouth bass, and we caught some smallmouth bass over on Mille Lacs.
Yeah.
Took him to a smaller lake back by my house, caught some fish with he and his wife. Roscoe is no longer with us. Boy, yeah, I mean, I've hunted with Bud Grant, turkey hunted out at Camp Ripley.
Nice.
And I have. And I'm just like totally drawing a blank. I should have it on the website, so people can say, oh, that's cool. But, yeah, I'm struggling big time for that.
Yeah, it'll
They'll-
pop too.
Yeah, I'm sure that they will come back.
Because they're all talking about fishing with Walleye Dan. There's no doubt about that.
Well, hard to say.
When did you start? 89, late 80s, right?
Yeah,
90s?
89 was my first
89
trip.
was the first guide trip?
Yep.
Yeah. So we've seen a number of things change in our fisheries over those years, haven't we?
Oh, big time.
Yeah. I mean, so what's your impression of the fishing in 89 compared to the fishing of 2020?
Well, you know what? It was, gosh, I want to say it was easier then. I don't know if it was, more fish or less pressure or both, but, water clarity, plays a part of that. Now that we have clear water, we have spookier fish, and, we're having to adapt. But, you used to be able to pull up onto a spot, that the wind had been hitting, and you could be in 14 feet of water and still catch them.
Yeah.
Now they're gone. So yeah, I mean, it's just less boats on the water, more fish, easier to catch, a little bit longer fall bite. We'll say it started in September and then went right through, until ice up. Now it seems to start in, almost the middle of October. And it's just different.
Yeah. No, I don't know what the cause is, but I think we're seeing later springs and later fall. I mean, I've just watched this whole calendar kind of, especially more recent years. It seems like it's just kind of flopped about a month and a half off. And
Yeah.
gosh, we've been fighting to get the ice off here in Minnesota for opener, and opener's usually that, first or second Saturday in May. Second Saturday usually, I think.
Yep.
That's how that works.
Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. So do you think that all of that water clarity, is that how we're treating our water? Or you think it's more invasive species related, zebra mussel type?
You know what? I think it's probably a combination of, the cleaning up the septics, right? Whenever
We're not dumping them in the lakes anymore.
right,
I miss those days.
Yeah.
Swimming next to the septic outflow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Marinated walleyes, they had a little different flavor back then. Yeah.
The weeds grew faster.
Oh yeah. Yep. So yeah, a combination of that and, the introduction of zebra mussels. Definitely, it's a number of different factors for sure.
Yeah. No, it has changed. So has it changed how you fish and where you fish?
Absolutely.
I mean, so what are you seeing as the most what's the biggest difference in your presentations as the water's gotten clearer? I mean, because I mean, guiding's interesting because generally, as a rule, and I don't know how you. I haven't never asked you this question before, but are you doing half days at like dawn and dusk? Are you doing like full days 8 to 4? How are you guys doing your guide days? Because those make a big difference on how you attack a body of water.
Correct. Yeah, usually it's a morning trip, 7:30 to 11:30 or 2 to 6.
Yeah.
Something like that. And yeah, so to answer your question, like I said before, we can no longer sit on top of these fish because they spook. So now it's casting to them. Gull Lake and all these lakes up here were always lindy rig lakes, red-tailed chub and a lindy rig. So now, you need to get that out of your head. And, some of the younger guys were, you're watching them slip bobber fish and, how'd you do? Oh, we did pretty well. And, you see them netting fish and they're catching fish. So, you need to kind of, keep up with the times, we'll say, and not keep, beating the dead horse, right? So slip bobber fishing with a leech, more or less you're fishing blind. And these fish are shallower than people have ever thought. So now we're targeting fish that we're not marking with our electronics necessarily, although some of that side imaging will pick out some of those fish. But we're covering water, and I guess the best way to know where they're at is to pick a day that is flat, calm, and sunny, and put on your polarized glasses and cover water, and you'll see them. We're seeing fish in 5 feet of water, 8 feet of water, 12 feet of water, whatever. And yeah, so whether you're casting to them with, a jig and wrap, if it's a clean bottom, or plastics, whatever, or a slip bobber and a leech, yeah, it's totally changed in the last 5 years.
Why has bobber fishing become more effective, do you think?
I don't think it's become more effective. It's always been really effective. You look at Mille Lacs, right? Slip bobbers, slip bobbers, slip bobbers. We just never really had to do it. We were able to produce by rigging, and now we can't. So, unless it's really low light. So yeah, you just had to do it.
So how big an area are you trying to keep a pulse on for your fishing? I mean, is it Gull Lake to Brainerd? Are you going as far as Leech? Are you going further than up and down 371 corridor or east west? Where are you coordinating?
You know what? I would say 75% of our trips are Gull Lake.
Yep.
Maybe 70, whatever. And then a percentage is the Brainerd area, the North Longs and Pelicans and, whitefish chain. We hit a fair amount, but it depends. It's where are the fish biting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we need to go where we feel most confident that we're going to put you, the customer, on fish. And if we have to go to Leech, we know the bite's good up there, we'll go there. But, obviously you need to consider all things, right? I mean, that's an hour from home. You're burning fuel, you're burning time, and a lot of our customers, don't necessarily need a walleye, right? They're out for the whole experience, and they want the rod bending, whether it's a rock bass or a largemouth or a pike or a walleye, whatever.
How many of your trips are solely intent on the purposes of producing for a fish fry, and what percentage of trips are just there to bend a rod?
These days it seems like the majority of them, I would say, are there to bend the rod. Our busy time is from June 15th through the end of September. Okay. And it's families, lots of families. The people that hire us, opener, and for those first few weeks are, more the hardcore angler, and the same thing on the other end in the fall. But that midsummer stuff, They just want to catch fish.
Do they care what kind? Is it panfish? Is it walleyes? Is it perch?
They don't.
They don't care.
They don't care.
They want a bent rod.
Yep.
Very good.
Yep. And I think some of the guides will talk them into eating rock bass too. Not any of our guides, I'm saying, but there
are guides.
But there are guides.
So speaking of guides, Minnesota has no regulations on fishing guides. I can print a business card and be a fishing guide. Should there be regulation on fishing guides? Should we have a license program? Do we need one? How do we monitor that?
That's a fantastic question. I guess I
know that I'm bound, but Border Waters, I'm interrupting here just a second, but Border Waters require it, just so I can get that clear. Anybody that's on a rainy lake or a lake of the woods or international type of water, even technically, I believe it's anywhere that the Mississippi even flows through, is technically supposed to have a six-pack license.
Yep. Which would include Gull Lake, right? It runs into the Mississippi.
Right.
Technically, yeah.
So do we need one? There are states that border us that require fishing license. Should they have first aid? Should they make sure they have insurance? Should we make sure that they have what should they have?
Yeah, I guess I would not be opposed to it. I don't.
Because, and where I'm going with all this, I live in Walker, Minnesota, live on shores of Leech Lake, and when things are good, when our hatches are good and walleyes are abundant, there's guides coming out of the woodwork.
Absolutely.
Everybody and their brother's a guide because they want to offset the cost of fuel or their $70,000 boat, right? So they want to take people fishing for a couple $100 in the weekend.
Not to mention the guys coming from
wherever,
from Timbuktu to come to Mille Lacs and catch a 55-inch muskie.
Exactly.
And guiding all summer, so I've heard that deal too. So
if you're going to be a smallmouth guide, you might as well do it on Lake Mille Lacs.
Oh yeah, guys coming up from the south to guide, for sure.
It's world class. Why not? That's what we attract. We are Minnesota. We are a premier fishery from Lake of the Woods to Leech Lake to Mille Lacs. All of this is unlike anywhere else in North America. The world wants to be where you live and where we live.
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree. And yeah, I would not be opposed to that. I think what it would do is it would weed out some of those people, the hot bite chasers, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, the fly by the seat of their pants, fly by night, guide services. And that just made me kind of look back though to the
early
beginning.
Days. Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's like we all had to start somewhere, right? And here I was. This was a classic moment too, because I remember pulling him into the ramp down at we call it the Zorba's ramp, right across from Zorba's on the channels of Gull, and I had my old rusty blue Chevy 1977 pickup pulling my dad's 16-foot Lund with the 25-horse Evinrude, and the looks that I got when I pulled into that ramp, by the other guide service, right? I could see those looks.
You didn't even have the PAF logo yet.
Right. No, if I would have covered up some of the rust if I would have had those stickers, but no, it's just kind of this cocky look like, who is this clown? And whatever, and there's kids that are doing it now, and I get calls, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that these guys have. How did you get into it? Da da da. Because I was there. I was one of those guys.
Well, that's why I'm poking you and prodding you on that a little bit, because chasing somebody's passion is for myself personally, it's a really important part of my life to follow whatever passions that I become obsessed with, right? And I've watched that evolve and change over time. But I've always been passionate about the outdoors. That was one of the things that drove me from the cities to north, same as you coming from Eden Prairie and wanting to live up here. So do you still find serenity out there?
Not really, no.
Fishing doesn't do it.
Not when I'm guiding. No.
Yeah.
It's work.
Oh, no,
it's a job.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm just being honest and saying, no, I don't find my serenity there, unfortunately, but I find it in the mountains of Idaho in September.
Right.
When I'm elk hunting, so yeah, it's my job, and I still do love it. I love fishing. I love everything about it. I mean, there are times that that I'll hit the wall, when you go too much, and I hit a time in my career where, yeah, I was saying, hey God, what's next here, and and then came along the whole, Fleet Farm deal where I hosted the show for a few years, and that was great. And then it's kind of like, and, Mills Fleet Farm sold, and, lots of different things I could go into there, but I won't. But that went away, and I was still, kind of like, okay, I liked that, I had fun doing it. And then it was, okay, well, what's next? And you know what? I think that, what I've got now, health-wise, was next. I mean, you hate to say that, but it is the truth. God gives us different challenges, and He's probably saying, hey, how are you going to deal with this? And so that's what I've got. Instead of probably, hey, you've got a really good job here. You get to be outside in nature and guide people, and and fish, right? There's so many people that would love to do that, but here I was, complaining about it, right? Like, what's next? Now I got it.
No,
so
and it's a reminder. But if we can talk about that a little bit, you've been diagnosed. I believe it was July of 2019 was the actual confirmation of multiple myeloma.
You got it.
That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
Tell me, what is multiple myeloma?
Multiple myeloma is a bone marrow cancer, blood cancer, I guess. And yeah, I mean, you go through life and, just kind of full speed and, indestructible, or whatever you want to say.
How old are you?
I am 52.
So you're 52.
Yep.
You're married.
Three
kids.
Children. Yep.
You've got a booming guide business. You're coming off one of the hottest times in your career with hosting the Mills Fleet Farm television program. It had done extremely well. Probably would still be going if the company hadn't sold. Marketing dollars change, ideas, right? It's part of the entertainment industry. That's
absolutely
how it works.
Yep.
So it evolves and it changes, and then suddenly you run into this.
Right. Yeah. And it was last spring, cruising not far from here, on the dirt roads, turkey hunting's another passion of mine. And, talking on the phone, cruising the dirt roads, hit a pothole, and I was like, oh, I was like,
like your back?
My back.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's like, not long after that, I was getting these back spasms, these muscle spasms that would wrap around my whole body and just make me fall to the ground screaming and crying.
Well, for serious.
More or less, yeah. And I had probably 15 of them throughout, a couple week period, maybe longer. And yeah, it was just absolutely brutal. And took a long time to diagnose it, but bottom line is that's what came back after doing some blood tests. And, it's been, it's like my wife says, it's the new normal, and it sucks, but I'm thankful that I haven't, I've slowed down, but I'm still out guiding. This winter I've been, busy. I've been on the ice. Oh yeah. And I'm on all kinds of...
You're an animal.
Well, you know what? Yeah, that was a nickname back in the day too, Danimal. But but anyway,
should have made cookies.
Yeah. So anyway, I just I'm not going to give up. I'm just
because you're under chemo every day, right?
Yeah.
Or is this a medication that you take? Is that what, or how do you get your chemo?
Yeah,
every day?
Orally. I'm 21 days on, 7 days off with
Sure.
the oral, which is Revlimid.
Are you getting sick?
No.
Everything's going good.
Everything has been good. Yeah.
Are you right on target where you think you should be? I mean, where the doctors think you should be?
It's been slower. The numbers,
Okay.
are going down, but they had to kick in a couple other chemo meds, or at least one other one, to speed things up.
And the chemo meds are going to supposedly kill this myeloma.
The myeloma numbers,
So
yeah.
it's supposed to kill that. And then how do we have to regenerate the bone, or what do we got to do to?
I've been doing that too. That's a I've been taking Zometa, which is a calcium to build bone.
Okay.
But the end is I'm supposed to do stem cell coming up here, in April. Stem cell transplant.
So at this point, we're a weeks away from that.
Yeah, we're getting close. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the myeloma numbers are right now, but my oncologist down in Rochester was pretty confident that we'd be ready, depending on what the results were of my tests, the heart and the lungs and a lot of different, I think 2 or 3 days of testing before I can even have stem cell transplant.
What can go? What are we checking? What can happen here? I mean, do we have to make sure that we've doused the myeloma enough that we can replace it with the stem cell? Is that what is going on here, or how does that?
Right. I mean, yeah, they need to be down far enough.
Yep.
But the testing, I think, is just to see if my body can withstand what's to come.
Strength.
Right.
But you appear strong. You look strong.
Well,
you wouldn't shake my hand, which I fully understand when you walked in the door here. We ended up fist pumping because we're and you looked right at me and you're like, germs, man, which I never thought about because your immune's down.
Yeah, the immune system is definitely down. So yeah, I don't, I'm not living a paranoia life. I'm still out and about, and when you're confined in a snow bear and you got a gal up front that's hacking, you're like, wish you would have told me that, or maybe I should have asked. But you got to keep moving on. But yes, you have to be smart too. And once this,
I would just tell her better fishing spots outside.
Keep telling her there's a tip up
a little further.
Yep, a
little further.
So anyway, no, it's just it's what I'm living with. It's what I've been dealt. And you know what? I'm going to listen to the doctors, even though part of me is says, you know what? You don't have to do that stem cell transplant. You get those little voices that say, okay. It's and people that have had it will tell you that same thing. That you go through a period where you're like, you know what? Screw that. I'm not gonna deal with that.
Do you fully anticipate like some sort of do bodies react to it? I'm completely ignorant, so I'm just asking a question. I mean, is it possible that you reject?
I don't think so. No, I think the biggest, they need to harvest enough cells, which can be a battle. Everybody's body is made up differently, right? And I don't know how I'm going to go through that. Maybe they'll be able to get them all in one day and it'll be great. And then they freeze them. And I don't know the whole process, Chip, but yeah, there are some people that aren't candidates. So
what's our prognosis? Is this curable?
It's not curable. No, it is, we're hoping to get into remission, and if I do the stem cell, that'll be good. And then I'll probably be on, drugs the rest of my life, some type of chemo just to, what's the word I'm looking for?
Maintenance.
Manage.
Sure.
Yep. So no, it's, and right at first, when we were talking to the doctors here, one of them was, my wife is like, well, what's the prognosis here? And he says, well, 2 to 15 years. And it's like, oh, thanks, but, and then we go down to Mayo and talk to him, and he's like, you know what? He should have never said that. There's people that have lived 25 years after stem cell. Some don't make it through. Some live 5, 6, whatever. So I'm not scared. I know I'm going north when I'm out of here. And that's that's the biggest deal.
Well, I know that, that's heavy. That's a lot to face, right? I mean, that, especially as a dad and at home, that's a lot to comprehend, but it also has, you've always been a very spiritual guy. I know that your faith is really important to you, right? And this is obviously a place that you can lean on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. For those that don't have that, or, don't believe that God is the one, the supreme being, I don't know how they do it, right? Because, there is a heaven, there is a hell, and those are both eternity. And, which do you prefer? And I know we could go on and on. I shouldn't say which do you prefer, but there will be, it's said, the road is broad to destruction, which is hell, and it's narrow to heaven. So, we know right there that there's going to be a lot more going south than there are north. But yeah, I do have strong faith, and I totally believe that God sent Jesus here to die for us. And it's simple. We don't need to be Lutherans or Catholics or Methodists or Presbyterians or whatever you are. We need to have that relationship, and you don't need to, in my opinion, step foot into a church to have that. You can wake up in the morning and say, hey, thank you, Lord, for this day. And you know what? Guide me through it. It's a relationship. It's not going and giving your money to the church. And, you can, we do a Bible study at our house that consists of some days 5 people, some days maybe 8 people. And that's what it is. It's like-minded believers, right? Wherever there's 2 or more gathered, he will be there. Yeah. So anyway, that is something that I feel really strongly about, super confident in. And
it's helped you deal with,
helps.
Essentially mortality here. You walk in, you're sitting in a room. I can't even comprehend what it was like to sit there with your wife and having somebody come in and tell you got 2 to 15 years.
Correct.
That's it. What went through your mind?
Oh my gosh. It was, and I was drugged too, big time, with the broken vertebrae. I had 3 broken vertebrae, and I don't think we ever got to that after hitting the pothole. And yeah, I had 3 broken vertebrae. Yeah. But
first indication the bones might be getting weaker.
Yes, exactly. Word. So I could have been living with it for 8 or 10 years, possibly.
For serious?
Yeah, it's possible.
How do we know this? How would people test?
You know what? It all started with the back issues.
Okay.
I thought I had pulled muscles, and we need to get back to where you asked me something before, and we're kind of going back and forth here, but
that's who you're dealing with, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, and I'm usually good with that too, but I think I had something important to say but yeah, I reached into my boat, early spring, during turkey season.
Yeah.
And thought I pulled muscles in my upper back, right?
Okay.
So I was favoring those upper back muscles as I was talking on the phone, driving down and hitting, when I hit that pothole, that's when it really happened. And I probably broke one there.
Oh my.
Could have broke something out on the water. But, so now I'll jump ahead to June, where I was over on Mille Lacs, and this is, was just, the reminder was just, I want to say last or 2 weeks ago, when I was out, in the Snow Bear with the same customer that I had been out on Mille Lacs with, right? And we were out there, and yeah, it was the end of June, I want to say, and we were just whacking them, right? Like everybody was. But we probably caught 100 walleyes, slip bobber fishing, leeches, just one after another. And my back was so bad, I couldn't net a fish anymore. I mean, I was baiting hooks and handing the net to customers. And at that point, who cares, right? They're catching fish after fish, But yeah, that was, and we had to take a break for lunch. I ended up, we pulled into Garrison Creek Marina, and I hitchhiked down to, I ended up walking, but I put my thumb out a couple times down to Garrison Sports to get another pound of leeches because we burned out of them. And Carrie gave me a ride back. But yeah, it was just one of those days. But like I say, I just had those people out again in the Snow Bear, and he just reminded me of that day. And I'm like, how did I forget that day? But so yeah, that was one of my last trips before I.
How much guiding did you lose? You had to have lost something. I mean, you ended up in the hospital for a while, right?
Oh yeah. So I was done. From the end of June, and I did my first open water guide trip in November of this year.
Yeah, you lost.
And then
it
my
all.
last one.
You
too.
lost it all.
I lost it all summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But back doing the winter thing, and here we are.
Yeah, very good. Well, that's astounding. I mean, that's an amazing story to have hit a pothole and broke ribs.
Broke vertebrae.
Broke vertebrae, excuse me. Broke vertebrae. Yeah. That's a lot to swallow. How's your wife doing?
Oh, well, thanks for asking. Yeah, and that's what she kind of says a lot of times. It's like, well, people are always wondering about you, and she's the caregiver.
Oh no, we're nowhere without a support system.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. So I think she struggles with it.
Sure.
But anybody is going to struggle with it. Period. And
is she as spiritual as you are?
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
As you are?
Yeah.
And that's important for her too.
Big time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, she's doing fine. Her work is her social life, and she only works a few days a week, but I think we're both just really hopeful that, I can get back to, or we can get back to some type of, normalcy. And it's never going to be, how it was. I'm older and I've got this, and it's, so we'll just have to keep taking a day at a time.
But 1.4 million anglers in the state of Minnesota, everybody really takes notice when our Walleye Dan gets sick. I mean, it was, I think somewhere up here, I've got a Channel 9 News out of Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there was other medias as well, but end up doing a pretty big feature story on you.
I haven't even seen this. I mean, I saw the live broadcast, but I didn't know that it was online. But
yeah, so they're talking about you and how your impact on the sport of fishing, what you mean to the sport of walleye fishing in Minnesota, and how everybody. I mean, you're in the heart of it. You're in the epicenter. You're in Brainerd, Minnesota, and there's only one Walleye Dan, and Walleye Dan is in the fight for his life. And so it talks a little bit about your story.
There I was scooping that walleye out of Mille Lacs.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about what happened.
Mm-hmm. There's a moose.
Yeah, that's your. It's a doodle, right?
It is a golden doodle. Yeah,
pretty nice.
And there's
your support network right there.
Yep, doing shots. Yep,
yeah.
Doing shots in the hospital. Shots of chemo.
Yeah, exactly.
Sister Molly. Hey, Molly. But yeah, it's life, right? You know what? You don't know when your last day is going to be. I don't know when my last day is going to be, but we're going to have one.
One of the things that I think is neat that I've embraced what you've done here is, okay, so you grow up, I talk about how big the state is in terms of the amount of anglers that are there. Done a great job marketing your Walleye Dan. Everybody knows who Walleye Dan is. Here you are on the news. It's obviously that people in the industry and the state cares about Walleye Dan deeply. We want you to get better, and everybody's rallying behind you. So you're like, I don't really know where I'm going. I don't know what my next move is. Mm-hmm. When suddenly the road is out there for you to you can sing whatever you want to sing. I mean, this is a platform for you to do and carry whatever message you really want to carry, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. And but yeah, thank you for that. And it is humbling because I've never looked at it that way, right? You're
You're doing your deal.
Yeah, I do my deal, and I've never thought that way. When you say, well, yeah, 1.4 million anglers, I do my thing, and as much as
But it isn't just that you're doing that. I mean, because in the middle of all this, you're running a nonprofit event, raising money for hungry kids.
Yeah. Yep. It was Kids Against Hunger, and now it's Outreach of Brainerd Lakes.
The outreach program.
Yep. The Outreach program. Yep. So
you got a tournament. It's every October.
First Saturday in October.
Yeah, and it's called Walleye Dan's
Fishing to End Hunger.
Fishing to End Hunger event.
Yeah. This will be the 8th year, I believe.
So
this coming fall.
Life goes fast in the summer here, right? I mean, it's all happening. I know that I see on the news that you're sick. I read that you're sick. I'm following on social media all these little blips. The next thing I know is you're standing at your walleye tournament in October. And I'm like, what's with this guy?
Yeah, you know what? If I'm able, I'll be there, I mean, like I say, who knows how long I had this, Chip? And you know what? I was getting up and going to work, and doing trips, and was not feeling right for a long time. And you know what? I'm just, it would be great to feel really good again, and we'll see, coming out of this whole deal, maybe I will be, totally refreshed and ready to rock, but I've been tired.
Oh, that's
Big
understandable. Tell me about the event. Have you raised a lot of money? How many years have it been going on?
Yep. So like I say, this will be, October 3rd, 2020 will be the 8th year. And, last year we had 112 or 14 boats.
Sure.
Really good fishermen.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we're money wise, I don't have those numbers right off the top of my head, but we did really well last year. And I want to say with Sean Hansen, the executive director, she has just really kickstarted things, and gotten us to a different level. Does an awesome job, and we're packing food. And what surprised me, and what I think what surprised a lot of people, is the fact that a lot of that food is distributed locally. There's people that are back in the woods that can't go to Costco or Cub or Schaefer's or wherever and get groceries, right? They're struggling, and kids at school, and so a lot of that food stays locally. But in the case of the Bahamas, where they got wiped out, we'll ship it down there too. So, just.
So it's a global initiative. It's not just regionalized or localized.
Correct.
It's you're trying to touch people all over the world. Anywhere there's hunger. And how do people learn more about the tournament? Can they donate without actually participating?
Well, absolutely, yeah. The office is right in Nisswa, Minnesota. I mean, they could swing in there and write a check, and knowing that money is going to go to, the people, not just kids. It's it was Kids Against Hunger, but it's going to go to families. It's going to go to people in need. So yeah, they could go in, write a check. They can come out to the event at Bar Harbor and buy their raffles and whatever the case. But we do have a variety of people. I mean, you have the hardcore walleye fisherman that wants to come there and win that $15,000, and you also have the two buddies that are just, we're doing it because we like fishing together, and we know that this money is going to go to a good cause, and they fish it.
Yeah.
And bottom line is they could very likely catch 5 walleyes, and place up in the top, in the money as well as anybody else could.
So where do you think fishing is going in our state from the standpoint of, we talked a little bit about aquatic invasive species a while ago. We talked a little bit about where guiding's going. Are you seeing more kids? Are you seeing less kids? You talked about families being your busiest time.
Mm-hmm.
Why has that always been that way, or are we seeing more families fish now than before? Are there less parents fishing, so they're looking for more guidance?
You know what? I think it's always been, when we live in the heart of the Brainerd Lakes area here, it's tourism, right? You get all the resorts, and we've gotten the word out, probably not to the magnitude that we should, as far as, hey, come here to fish, right? It's come here to golf, and while you're here, if you're sick of golfing or if you pull a muscle, go fishing, But I think that and I'm losing my train of thought here a little bit, but where is it going? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously we've had, there's initiatives to get more youth fishing, and you get these high school fishing teams that have really exploded. And I don't know. I mean, it's a great thing, but it's also kind of look at the pressure, right? I don't know. I didn't know what word to use, but I mean, it's just I feel sorry for the fisheries a little bit, right?
They're getting you think they're getting a lot of pressure?
Oh my gosh, big time.
So you think there's more pressure? You think the fisheries are under more pressure than they've ever been before?
Yes.
Is that because of the amount of anglers? Is that technology?
It's both,
Okay.
And I'd say, just the educated angler.
Yeah.
Everyone has the maps, and they have all the tools, and you've got so many different fishermen that are, giving out information, which is fine, right? I've done it for years, and fishing reports and this and that. Try to be pretty general, but now you've got TV shows that are telling you where they're at, right, and what they're doing, and they were there a week ago. So what do you think Tom, Dick, and Harry are going to do? Pack up,
chasing it down.
I mean, no doubt.
Yeah.
So lots of pressure.
Are lakes as accessible now? I mean, there's not a lot of shoreline fishing opportunities in the state of Minnesota. I mean, there's you either have to have a boat, and some of our accesses aren't. If you do have a boat, not all the accesses are primo, right? So I mean, do we provide is a premier fishery in North America? Do we provide enough opportunity to fish?
I would say. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lakes everywhere. A lot of the public landings are wide open, right? So yeah, I mean, there's certainly, and I'm looking at that lake right there. That's Gull Lake.
Yep.
And I'm basing a lot of my answers here off of that fishery. But yeah, you get off the big lakes and, onto some of these smaller bodies of water, and, there's fish in all of them, right? It's just how much time do these people have? And, I mean, it's endless. Yeah. There's tons of water. There's a lot of access. And like you say, maybe there's not the shoreline or dock fishing that, the people that don't have boats are able to, access. But now you got kayaks and you name it. So I think we do a pretty darn good job.
What's next for Dan?
What is next? Oh my goodness!
I mean, you're still going to guide this winter. You're all leading up to this bone marrow or the stem cell.
Yeah, bone marrow transplant, stem cell. Yeah.
In April.
Yes. Yep. I don't know, Chip. I really do not know. What is next? I've got my new boat being made probably right now or next,
Yeah.
it's coming up soon.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. But I guess I will continue, doing what I'm doing until the Lord says, hey, I want you to do this, and I don't know. Sometimes it needs to be a real serious slap up against this big melon for me to, realize that that's what's happening, but, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just going to keep on keeping on as long as I can. And I don't know. I mean, do I move to Idaho and, my brother's out there. I love it out there. Do I stay in this same house that I've lived in for, 23 years? Really have no clue.
I don't know if you have to know.
And I don't. So, and I don't know.
None of us really. Nobody can predict what's going to happen. We don't know. We have today, right? You got to make the best out of today.
Correct.
That's my whole life philosophy is live today as it's the only day because that's all you know.
That's exactly it. And the way this world is going, I can't say it's getting better. I really, and I would think that most people would have to agree with me. If you look around, it doesn't take much to realize, there's a lot of crap happening, and who knows how long all of us will be here. But yeah, can't give up and just got to keep on pressing on, and just time will tell.
Yeah, all we can do is be the best me I can be, right? And that's what you're doing, and you're an inspiration. I don't know you. I didn't know you well. I don't know you well. From we've crossed paths a lot of times over the years in the industry at shows and here and there and events, but I never really got to know you. So I'm really grateful that you came in here.
Can the lowly board op chime in for a second?
And talk? Yeah, absolutely.
I say that
let me interrupt you, and I'll say thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, that's how it is with a lot of the people in the industry too, right? You see them at a show and you don't get to know them.
You don't get to know them. You do know Dan.
I do know Dan pretty well.
Yes, you do.
And Dan and I have worked together on a number of things over the years. And I can tell you that I also am a believer that the Lord does choose who gets these challenges. Amen. A lot of times. And you have to have faith that he gives them to those that he thinks can handle them. And this is one of those guys right here. So, when I heard about this diagnosis with Dan, obviously it's crushing and you hate to see it happen, but, it was one of those things where it's like, if anybody is going to be able to beat something like this back, I think it's Walleye Dan. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And I know you won't. I know you won't agree with me, probably, but
like I say, it is what it is. And when my time is up, it's up. And when your time is up, it's up. And I guess I have lived a really, there's certain things, of course, that I regret in my life, like a lot of us do. But I have been blessed, big time, being able to do what I love to do, and with the family that I have, and the support group. Yeah, so I'm
and Moose.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. And Moose. Oh yeah, he's a piece of work.
Well, Dan, it's been a pleasure to have you here.
Well,
Thanks
thank you,
for joining
Chip.
us. And I know we will get together again and find a new set of topics, and hopefully the next round we're dealing with this in the rearview mirror.
Let's give one of those. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Chip Leer. Wildside.
Don't miss a single Wildside podcast. Subscribe to the Chip Leer's Wildside Podcast YouTube channel today, or visit fishingthewildside.net.